Emma Williams, a 32-year-old woman living in New York, is a successful art curator who seemingly has it all, except peace of mind. She receives a phone call from an unfamiliar number while she is preparing for a big art exhibit. It is from a nurse in a small-town hospital, informing her that her estranged father, John Williams, is gravely ill and is asked to see her. Shocked and conflicted, Emma immediately hangs up. She hasn't spoken to her father in over a decade and still harbors resentment towards him. That night, Emma can't sleep. Her mind is flooded with memories of her childhood, her father's alcoholism, the yelling, and the day he walked out on her and her mother. The memories are vivid, and she feels the anger and betrayal bubbling up again. She wonders why he would want to see her now, after all these years. She decides to ignore the call, burying herself in her work instead. At the art exhibit, Emma is praised for her hard work and creativity, but she finds herself detached and distracted. The art pieces that once brought her joy now seem empty. She glances at a painting of a broken vase being mended, and the symbolism strikes her deeply. A colleague notices her distraction and asks if she's okay, but she brushes it off, trying to focus on the event. Emma's close friend and co-worker, Sophie, senses something is wrong. Over coffee, Sophie presses Emma to open up. Reluctantly, Emma tells her about the call from the hospital. Sophie, who knows Emma's past, gently suggests that maybe it's time to face her father and find closure. Emma is defensive, saying that some wounds are too deep to heal. Back at her apartment, Emma looks at an old photo of her and her father from when she was a child. Despite the hurt, she can't shake the feeling that this might be her last chance to confront him and say everything she's held inside for years. After much internal conflict, she decides to go see him, not for him, but for herself. She books a flight to the small town where her father lives. Emma boards the plane, feeling a mix of anxiety, anger, and uncertainty. She listens to music to distract herself, but her thoughts keep drifting back to her father. She remembers the good moments before everything went wrong, his laugh, his stories, and how he used to take her to the park. A small part of her misses him, but she quickly dismisses it. Emma arrives in the quaint, quiet town where she grew up. The place looks almost unchanged, which brings back a flood of memories. She checks into a modest hotel, still unsure if she should actually go to the hospital. She takes a walk through the town, observing the familiar sights, and finds herself drawn to her old childhood home. She stands outside the house where she grew up, now worn down and in disrepair. She peers through the gate and remembers playing in the yard with her father. The memories are bittersweet, but the anger still lingers. She decides to go back to her hotel, but she feels the pull of her past. The next morning, Emma makes her way to the hospital. Her heart pounds as she walks through the sterile hallways. When she finally reaches her father's room, she stops at the door, unable to move. She almost turns back, but she takes a deep breath and steps inside. There lies her father, frail and aged beyond his years. He looks at her with tired eyes, but there is a hint of recognition and regret. Emma returns to the hospital the next day. She sits beside her father's bed, and they talk, not as a father and daughter estranged by time and hurt, but as two people seeking redemption. He shares stories of his struggles with addiction, and she shares how his absence impacted her life. Both of them cry, understanding the pain they've caused each other. Emma learns more about her father's past, things her mother never told her. She realizes that he had his own demons, and while it doesn't excuse his actions, it helps her understand him more. She begins to see him not just as the man who hurt her, but as a flawed human being who made mistakes. Emma decides to spend more time with her father, not rushing into forgiveness, but taking small steps toward it. She brings him food from his favorite diner and talks about her life, her job, and her love for art. She notices a faint smile on his face as she speaks, and she begins to feel a small sense of peace. One day, as Emma sits by her father's bed, he He becomes frustrated and lashes out, blaming himself for ruining her life. Emma, caught off guard, responds angrily, saying that he should feel guilty. The conversation escalates, and she storms out, feeling like she's made a mistake by coming here. As Emma walks through the hospital garden, she meets a nurse named Grace who has been taking care of her father. Grace shares stories of her own family struggles and how she learned to forgive her parents. She tells Emma that forgiveness is not about forgetting, but about freeing oneself from the burden of resentment. Emma sits in the hospital chapel, reflecting on Grace's words. She realizes that she is still carrying the weight of her anger and that it's time to let go. She feels a sense of clarity and decides to try again with her father. Emma returns to her father's room and, to her surprise, finds him writing a letter. He hands it to her, explaining that it's a letter of apology he's wanted to write for years but never had the courage to. She reads it, and for the first time, she feels the sincerity of his regret. Emma tells her father that she doesn't know if she can forgive him yet, but she is willing to try. They have a deep conversation about forgiveness, love, and healing. They both cry, and for the first time in years, Emma feels a weight lift from her heart. Inspired by the progress she is making, Emma decides to paint a mural in her father's hospital room, depicting a story of brokenness and healing. She explains to her father that art has always been her way of coping and that this mural represents their journey. The hospital staff and other patients notice Emma's mural and are touched by it. They encourage her, and some even share their own stories of estranged relationships and healing. Emma realizes she's not alone in her journey. As she finishes the mural, Emma breaks down in tears. Her father reaches out, and for the first time in years, they embrace. She feels a mixture of sadness, relief, and hope. She tells him she forgives him, not because she forgets, but because she wants to move forward. Over the next few days, Emma and her father spend quality time together. They talk, laugh, and share stories of the past. Emma feels closer to him than she has in years. She knows that their time is limited, but she cherishes every moment.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more fun songs as well as interesting and enjoyable stories.